welcome, Henrik, for the interview with CryptoHelden.
Thank you.
As a short introduction to NGM or e-money.
Yes, thanks for having us on your news site. We're trying to connect the traditional finance world with blockchain, and we do this by issuing digital money or on a blockchain that we built. We essentially have two classes of tokens. We have the stablecoins, which currently are euro, Swiss francs, and the Scandinavian currencies, because we are a Scandinavian company, so we figured that could be fun to have. Our second token class is the NGM, which is our staking token. Our chain is what's called proof of stake. So the staking token serves to secure the chain and provide a incentive mechanism for people to join the chain and be part of the ecosystem we're trying to build.
You mentioned that each token that you have released so far is backed by a reserve of assets dominated in its underlying currency. What kind of assets are these?
I mean, these are bank deposits essentially. So it's incredibly boring. It's simply a bank account in our bank. Once the assets grow to a size where the bank starts making noise about it, we'll probably divert some of it into government bonds and bonds in the same currency. So incredibly boring and very secure papers to ensure that we don't need to gamble or take risks to keep the reserve. That's the plan. So be as boring as possible, essentially.
Okay. So how does it actually work? So where did you get the funds from, the assets from?
Stablecoins come when people purchase the stablecoins. So what we're working on now is to spread adoption of the stablecoins. So we need to have what we call on-ramps and off-ramps, so people can convert the stablecoins into either fiat currency, like bank deposits regularly, or other crypto. So yeah, the assets that are backing the stablecoins at the moment come from people who purchased the stablecoins.
Okay. So it's a direct one-on-one with the market, basically. That's really interesting. When you did your initial research on stablecoins and for investigating this project, if it's feasible or not, what kind of parties did you speak to?
Well, what we started out together with the Cosmos ecosystem, which we have found very interesting, and we're also building on their technology. They have a vision of an ecosystem of connected blockchains. So each project will have their own blockchain running, and they will communicate through inter-blockchain communication. And we found this vision to be very attractive, and decided that we want to try and be like our contribution to this would be to add some value stable tokens, as we called them back then, which is essentially stable coins. So I mean, I wouldn't say we did a lot of market research back then. We decided that it was probably a good idea, and then we started working on the regulatory stuff, which was incredibly significant amount of work. It turned out. Anecdotally, we started out by going to the Danish central bank and asking for one of the fund account with them, because we wanted to keep the money as secure as possible. They offered very nice cake and Danish, but also kindly declined our request and sent us out to find a commercial bank instead. So yeah, that was a good introduction to that and how to start that. Following that, we spent quite a lot of time and money with lawyers talking to the Danish FSA on how this fits into the current regulatory landscape and how we can stay compliant and on their good side, so to say.
How does it work? Because you create stable coins in various currencies, so the Danish krone, but also the euro, Swiss franc. Does it come with different regulations per currency?
I mean, right now we are a Danish company, so we're under EU legislation. We're regulated under EU legislation.
Okay, yeah. You're looking for user adaptation, so I assume that being listed, or that the stablecoins are listed on exchanges as a way of trading other coins with is really important for the future. Is that part of your strategy as well, or how do you see this?
This is definitely part of our strategy. I mean, what we've done very recently is to bridge to Ethereum, which is, even though we love proof of stake and all the new networks coming up, we have to admit that all activity currently is happening on Ethereum. So we started out by creating a Uniswap pool with our NGM staking token, so people could buy that on Ethereum. What we are looking into doing now is also creating a liquidity pool for our stablecoins, so that other crypto users will have an easy on and off ramp against crypto in that. At the same time, we're talking to some institutional companies that who are very interested in stablecoins that have the properties we've set up, like which on our network, which are like it's quick transaction times, cheap transactions, it's immediate finalization and things like that. And yeah, on the regulatory side, they also really like that that we're being audited by Ernst & Young. So we're actually talking to some of those exchanges about either being listed or perhaps them just using our tokens for their cost clients.
Yeah, and are these exchanges looking that you have to meet certain criteria, and if so, which are they?
I mean, they want us to be compliant, obviously, and they want transparency, which this is basically our core values as well. So we fit pretty well there. They do like that it's fast. I mean, the alternative they're looking at is settling on, for example, on ordinary bank deposits, which depending on your country can be expensive and or time consuming. So they're looking into that as an alternative.
Okay. I also saw on your roadmap that you might be integrating with protocols going to be integrated with a credit card provider. What does that entail in?
I mean, essentially what we want to be able to do is to allow people to buy the stablecoins using credit cards. So we're working towards that.
But what's the main advantage? Like, say, if it becomes a payment vehicle, a stable coin, what's the difference between, because there are already some players out there where you can do purchases and you convert your cryptos to fiat money on the spot, like they do the conversion for you. So what's the main benefit of doing that with a stable coin released by eMoney?
Well, we're actually talking to a service like that also about being able to sell our stablecoins using that kind of service. So that would be, we're very much in favor of that. Yeah, the advantage is simply to make it easier to onboard people, and then they can participate in the ecosystem we're trying to build. And
so looking at integration with other players and building out your ecosystem, since you're compliant with most EU regulations, are you mainly focusing on the EU market for now?
Yes, I would say that. Yeah, we're primarily focused on the EU market now. We actually received some interesting response from someone we talked to that some of the bigger institutional players are a little bit scared of US dollars backed stablecoins because they feel like the regulation is a bit unpredictable in the US. So they're very interested in a euro-based alternative, at least. The Eurozone is working towards updating their regulation in this area, which is it's quite interesting to follow, and we are following it closely. And it's a large part of our effort is also in the long term to stay compliant with the legislation that's being introduced.
A lot of central banks or governments are doing research or actually already developing a digital version of their own national currency. How does that relate to stablecoins? Will those make stablecoins obsolete?
It's very tough to say. I mean, I would say that right now the final shape of what the central banks are building it's not very clear. I mean, I think the country that is furthest ahead is Sweden right now, and what that looks like, the system they're building looks, as far as I can tell, like a kind of a permission system for permission players, where you can exchange value, but it can change quite a lot until release, I would say, because I know timeline for these projects is also quite long. I believe Sweden was talking about 2025 or 2026 before they might have something. What I'm thinking is that right now this field is so open that everyone is sort of projecting their dream scenario into it. They're like, oh, this central bank is picking up the mantle on CBDC. It's going to look like this that I have in my head, which is something that looks like Tether or is and completely permissionless. And I'm not sure it will be that. No one really knows what the final product will be. I mean, also from an account point of view, it's fairly interesting to think if every citizen suddenly has an account with a central bank, what that entails. What does commercial banks do suddenly? And I guess we'll all move our deposits to the central bank because I mean that's the safest place to keep your money. Things like that. I think it's a very interesting area to follow, but there's also a lot of uncertainty still about what the final form of this will be. I could imagine, like in Denmark, we have like this internal credit card system that we've had since the 80s, which is super efficient, and you can pay by in every shop. And I could imagine that it's actually going to end up looking something like this, which is a fairly closed system that you can pay your way into, but which still penetrates a lot of society. So it's a super exciting area, and a lot is happening. But you could say that the timeline right now for most of the crypto CBDCs is it's not what you say crypto time, where 1 year feels like 10 years in the rest of the world.
Yeah, speaking of that, so last autumn you did the token sale, but you've already been working on this project for 3 years. So is it? I assume that a lot of work went into the regulation and compliance side, figuring things out how to set up such a system that you're working towards.
Yes, this is true. I mean, it's a bit like we're seen as a tech company from people outside of crypto, but inside of crypto, I would rather say we're not. We have a tech side, but we are mostly like a regulatory company almost. So I mean, we spend a lot of time on the regulatory side. We spend a lot of time finding a bank that wanted to play along. We spent some time finding an auditor that could play along, and then we also we needed to build a technology, and we're part of the whole run up to the release of the Cosmos Hub, for example. We were building on that technology, so we also had to sort of wait for that to be mature enough to build on things like that. But then we launched our mainnet a year ago, actually, in March. So we have been live for a while.
You and your co-founder Martin are two tech guys, right? You're both developers, and you have an IT background instead of a hard finance accounting.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So how did that work? That transition for you to?
Well, I mean, we paid more money for lawyers than I would have than I felt comfortable with, so to say. So I mean, we've been fortunate enough to find a lot of really good lawyers to help us along the journey, and then we've tried to sort of tag along and get come to grasp with the regulation and understand it thoroughly. But so that part of it we sort of purchased, and we have a very good relationship with our lawyers still who are ready. Like Martin also previously he's been working with market making and FX trading on an algorithmic ways of doing this. So he has some finance experience, and as for me, I've been a consultant. I've worked a lot in the financial sector, which is the sector here in Copenhagen that hires a lot of consultants essentially. So you almost can't avoid it if you're a software developer. So we do have some finance insights as well.
So for the first 2 years, you were a self-funded startup, like bootstrapped.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the revenue model for eMoney? How were you gonna make money off this in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, the model requires that there is a legal entity somewhere who maintains the bank accounts and talks to auditors and lawyers and things like that. So we of course we need a revenue model. Our tokens are interest bearing, which is and like our stablecoin tokens are interest bearing, which is relatively novel as far as I can tell in this world. So what we did is we used the traditional bank model of adding a markup on the interest. And that markup of 1% pro anno is then used to buy back our staking token NGM and burning the tokens that are bought back. So that creates a buy pressure that is relative to the total issuance of stablecoins. So essentially, the more stablecoins issuance we have, the bigger the buyback and burn rate will be. So that's, we find is a mechanism that is quite interesting and novel and is tied pretty directly to the success of the project. So what we do with the NGM is also that allows us to have a fund which we can use to encourage partnerships and basically grow the ecosystem that we're trying to build.
So you released a couple of stable coins now, the euro, the Danish krone. On the roadmap are also sterling, US dollar. What will come next? What are some key influences to decide upon? Okay, we're going to release this stable coin now.
I mean, it's regulatory mostly. Like for example, for the US dollar, we would need to really prepare and make sure we understand the current regulatory landscape there, because the reach of the American legislators is quite long. So we need to make very sure we are doing that correctly. The British pound, it's partially regulatory and also finding a bank that can support it. It's a little less of a headache, I would say. Right now, we are focusing. Our primary work now is expanding on the stablecoin adoption. So bridging to networks where interesting things happen and talking to projects about adopting the stablecoins and simply making sure we expand the ways, like the ways to get in and out of the stablecoins and find use cases for it. So get a network effect going.
Yeah, so that could mean possibly integrating with DeFi lenders such as Celsius, for instance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we look into the whole DeFi space, which is exploding. I mean, we're already present on Uniswap with the NGM token, but the stablecoins should also have similar pools to increase adoption.
And how do you decide on regarding the resources that you have, like in promoting the stable coins and integrating with it, whereas also you have your own NGM token, and how do you increase awareness for that so that it will increase in value, which is interesting for investors? Well,
I actually see it as a whole. It's a unified whole, so to say. That if stablecoin adoption increases, that adds news that we can use to say that now NGM is becoming more interesting because the buy pressure from the buyback mechanism will increase, things like that. So I don't see it as choosing between promoting the NGM or the stablecoins essentially. So we're sort of trying to fire on all cylinders at once.
So switching a bit to the product and tech side of NGM. So what does your product and development team look like?
We are 4 developers now, and we're working on wallet features and integration, and also on the upcoming upgrade of our blockchain software, which will include IPC for Cosmos, so we can finally integrate with the Cosmos Hub. It's something we've been looking forward to for a long time. We're also ready for when there are partners who will need some kind of custom-made component for integration. So we have that sort of on the ready.
Yeah. What would you say was the biggest technical challenge you had to solve so far?
It's interesting. Building our blockchain has a DEX built in for. It's not meant to compete with Uniswap or any of the multitude of DEXs that pop up these years, but it's meant for providing a way to easily exchange stablecoins between each other, and for the buyback mechanism for NGM. Building that was probably the biggest challenge. It was also a super interesting challenge, but it was a pretty big challenge.
Okay, so that wallet was, or the DEX was custom built.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, you built the protocol on Cosmos. What has that experience been like? Is there a lot of developer resources available, libraries that you could make use of? And how would it additionally compare to other, chains, would you say?
It's been quite a good experience, actually. The tech stack, I believe, is rock solid, and there's a good collection of standard modules that you can use to build some of the stuff you want, and you can adapt them to some of the stuff you need to build. So it's been quite a good experience. The Tendermint team and the people building the core of the Cosmos SDK has been very responsive and easy to communicate with. So it's I think the vision is to sort of become the Ruby on Rails for building blockchains, and I think they're not far away from that. I mean, you might end up having a big standard library of modules that you can sort of pick and choose between when you build your own blockchain. So that's been overall a very good experience. Like having our own blockchain, I mean, it comes with pros and cons, of course. Like among the pros is that we have been able to build what we call dynamic block time. This means that as long as the mempool is empty, there'll be a block created every 30 seconds. That's what we call a heartbeat block. But if there is a transaction in the mempool, we'll instantly create a new block. This means that a transaction is usually finalized within half a second. So, I mean, you get some really interesting properties with that, in that you can actually use it for real-world payment systems. Of course, having your own blockchain also means that we, like on the con side, that means you need to assemble a validator community, which we have on the pro side. We've been very fortunate to be able to do. We have a huge support among our validators, which we are very grateful for.
Yeah, so I read that you have around 40 validators. How are they rewarded by?
We're minting new NGM tokens. The NGM tokens are also being inflated every year, and they're being the newly minted tokens are distributed as staking rewards, much like you see on Cosmos Hub, and which I assume you see on basically every proof of stake chain.
So you're listed, recently now on Uniswap, and before that already on BitMEX, or Ascent, it's called now.
Yeah.
I assume one of your strategies is that if other exchanges incorporate stablecoins that you issued, that possibly part of the deal could be that the NGM token is going to be listed as well.
Yeah, that's very possible. Yeah. I mean, we're actively looking into more exchanges, primarily for the stablecoins actually, but would be nice to get the NGMs as well in the mix.
Yeah. So you operate from Denmark. So what's the crypto scene out there like? Is there a lot happening with projects starting? When is there a lot of awareness around crypto these days in the media?
There is a lot of media attention right now in Denmark, which I guess there's globally because the prices have been so interesting since New Year's. There's a fairly healthy scene here, I would say. Some of the people running MakerDAO are actually located here as well. So that would be a big contribution to the blockchain ecosystem, I would say.
And how does working in crypto compare to working in a more corporate space, like as a developer or founder?
That's an interesting question. I would say, I mean, things are just happening so quickly, and there's so much happening in crypto that it can be hard to keep up, right? Like I sometimes set off sites like in the morning, say, now I need to keep up with this and this and this project and to see how they're doing, and then suddenly half the day is gone. And I mean, I'm slightly more knowledgeable than I was in the morning, but it's also very time consuming to try and keep up on just a fraction of what's going on. I mean, I guess that's the charm of it also. We're in sort of a Cambrian explosion of projects and experiments and new models. So that's incredibly interesting. I mean, I could sometimes wish that the industry was maybe slightly less toxic than I find it to be sometimes, but yeah, can't get it all.
Yeah, exactly. So if there are so many developments going on, how do you stick to your vision, or don't get too much persuaded by the current hypes?
Yeah, I mean, our basic vision has of like bridging the traditional banking with blockchain has remained unchanged. But I would say, I mean, we do change things regularly. Our model has undergone like 3 or 4 major revisions since we started out. Like when we started out, having a large balance in a bank account with euro was sort of a good idea. There was still a little bit of interest on a bank account, but then we suddenly realized, the interest is going towards zero or negative. How do we deal with that? Then we had to, originally we would use the interest-bearing aspect of our stablecoins to distribute as a staking rewards, but we figured out that it would be better to distribute the NGM and then have the buyback function, which we then implemented. And so, I mean, the original vision of connecting traditional banking with the blockchain has remained unchanged, but the model has undergone several revisions on the way. So we are in no way immutable.
And most changes you could quote unquote easily make without disrupting your tech foundations, your code.
No. Yeah, I mean, changing to the buyback mechanisms was actually a hard fork of our mainnet, which we did in November, I believe. So it was well, it was something we should probably have come up with earlier and had introduced in the first mainnet, but it came for the second one. And I mean, I believe it's the right model now, so we don't foresee any significant changes.
So your co-founder is Martin Anderson. How do you know each other?
We known each other since we were in high school, basically, where we were like geeking out on computers together in the basement of a friend. And we both went into software engineering afterwards. And then we've stayed friends, but only recently became business partners.
And has that relationship changed, would you say, now that you're also like, in a business together?
I mean, that's pretty interesting, actually. I mean, it was part of my considerations. Like, was it a good idea to do something like this with a friend? I mean, in retrospect, it has been a good idea, but I was very uncertain about it. It's no guarantee that a friendship translated into a good business relationship, I would say. So I'm happy to say we're still good friends. So yeah, so far it's been good, but it was not a no-brainer.
As most companies, you're working from home now, but
no, actually, we're still at the office. Copenhagen is not completely shut down. So
okay, and do you so recruit people, mostly Danish people, so that you can work from the office, or how's that? Well, what's the HR vision for NGM?
No, we have remote people. We have right now we have business development in England. We have marketing in Holland. We have a developer in Sweden and one in Greece. So I mean, it's distributed. We recently hired a CFO here locally in Denmark who will help us with building banking relationships and talking to financial partners. So that's a huge contribution to the team. But no, we have a lot of people remote. It's necessary in this space, I would say. I don't think if you need someone with deep blockchain experience, it's not something you necessarily can find locally. You will have to go global.
Where do you see NGM being in 2 years? Well, you could say 5 years, but in crypto, like you mentioned, everything is going really fast. So let's say 2 years.
I mean, I'm hoping it's. I hope it's going to grow in value at that time. I hope our issuance will be large of stablecoins will be large enough to also drive some value increase for me. That you can actually see that have an impact. I don't think I dare set a price point on 2 year out, but I definitely hope we've created something sustainable that can keep the company going here, so we can deliver these stable coins and keep up with the regulations and just in general expand the adoption and finally give a regulated compliant stable coin with a high transparency. to the crypto world. That's our goal.